Thank you all for joining our fourth and final webinar for Indigenous History Month. We'll be talking today about allyship in action, moving beyond acknowledgement and reconciliation. So we'll start off by introducing myself and Doris, the presenters for today's webinar. My name is Natalie. I am a registered nurse by background of about 13 years. I work as an education liaison on the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis program team here at SE Health. I've worked in a variety of healthcare settings before coming to this team. I am a member of Wissahickon First Nation, which is located on Perry Island in Ontario. I'm a mother, a wife. I have two wonderful children. I'm also a sister, a daughter, and a friend of many. As I grow older, I strive to learn more about Indigenous culture, about my ancestry, my heritage, the richness of language, traditions, and ways of knowing. I want to take a moment to share how my day started today. I shared with the team earlier. I'll admit I woke feeling a little bit nervous about the opportunity to speak in front of so many of you, which is a very natural feeling when presenting or speaking publicly. But to ground myself, I stepped outside. It's a heat wave here in Ontario today, but I stepped outside to feel the warmth of the sun, the heat on my skin. I offered tobacco to a beautiful maple tree in my front yard, and I listened deeply to the surroundings around me. This practice brings me comfort and strength, and I do it as often as I can. I was greeted by singing birds, humming bees, and the sound of the leaves above me kind of dancing around me. It was beautiful. I felt in that moment a powerful sense of connection, that I was not alone, that my family members, my relatives were watching over me, guiding me safely in sharing and meeting virtually with you all today. I am grateful and honored to be with you all. Thank you for the opportunity to gather, to learn, and to share together. Miigwech.
Thanks, Natalie. Hello, everyone. I am Doris, and like Natalie, feeling a little bit nervous today, but incredibly grateful for this opportunity to connect with all of you. First and foremost, my most precious gifts are my roles as a daughter, mother, and partner. And I'm an engagement liaison with the SE Health First Nations Inuit Métis program. I'm also an ally and a proud treaty person, and I've had the honor of working alongside First Nations, Inuit, Métis communities and organizations for more than 35 years. So thank you for joining us today. Really excited. And I am sorry I'm having some internet difficulties, so I may turn my camera off if something slows down for me.
Miigwech, Doris. I'm so glad that we're here together today.
Me too.
The land that I live on was once the land of my ancestors and those before me. And as I did this morning, I pay respect to the surroundings. I practice gratitude for the land that I use in my day-to-day life. I want to take a moment as we start off today to recognize that reconciliation is uncomfortable, and it is important to practice humility as we become more aware about the importance of land acknowledgements and the purpose they serve. So I will now start us off with a formal land acknowledgement. We gratefully acknowledge and respect the treaty, unceded, and traditional territories and ancestral lands where we live, love, and work. I am joining you today from the city of Barrie, Ontario, specifically a little hamlet called Utopia, just outside of Barrie. This is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, which includes the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations. I would also like to acknowledge the Wendat Nation, the Huron peoples who occupied these lands prior to the 17th century. As this gathering is virtual for the majority of those attending, I would like to acknowledge that we all are all joining today from places near and far, coast to coast. I encourage you to explore and reflect on which Indigenous lands you are currently on, and be sure to acknowledge the traditional Indigenous owners and caretakers of those lands. I see that we are doing that already in the chat today, and I want to say thank you for taking the time to do so. Please continue to share. We are inspired by SE Health's purpose to bring hope and happiness and their long-standing commitment to collaborating with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities and organizations across Canada, which honors, respects, and acts upon the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Thanks, Natalie. I'd also like to respectfully acknowledge that I'm joining you today from Treaty 13 territory. Treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the ancestral territories of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, and the Huron-Wendat people. This territory is included in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which includes the people of the Longhouse, which was comprised of the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca nations. The Confederacy united these 5 nations and created a peaceful means of decision-making. This territory is also protected by the sacred covenant known as the Dish with One Spoon, and this agreement is grounded in Indigenous legal traditions. The Dish with One Spoon is one of several wampum that honors and directs the relationships between Anishinaabeg and Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Wampums are visual belts shaped documents that are sacred agreements between nations made from shell beads. The premise of the Dish with One Spoon covenant is that we all eat from the same dish and use the same spoon. And as stewards of the lands, the waters, and all its resources, it's everyone's responsibility to only take what's needed and to ensure that Mother Earth is cared for and given the grace and the space to rejuvenate.
Miigwech. Thank you, Doris. So we want to take a moment to offer our prayers and thoughts to those who have passed before us. We remember the ancestors and spirits. We honor the teachings they left behind. We hold up our elders who are still with us, the knowledge keepers who carries the stories, the songs, and the strength of our people. So just wanting to start us off in a good way. And I came across an Ojibwe morning prayer when I was recently at my father's home on Wissahickon First Nation, and it really spoke to me. And I wanted to take a moment as I learn more about language, about traditions, and about sharing and the importance of this, especially in our webinar today. I just want to take a moment to share the prayer. Wena bojo, misho misnonik, and noko misnonik. Waban manido. Zawan manido. Ningabu manido. Aki kwe. Oshkabiwish, mishomis, nokomis, minwa giji manido, miigwech, kinageo, amishyang, miigwech, bimadzawin, miigwech. Greetings to my relatives, our grandfathers and grandmothers, the spirit of the East, the spirit of the South, the spirit of the West, the spirit of the North, our Mother Earth, grandfather Sun, grandmother Moon, and also to you, Creator. We give thanks for everything that you give us. We thank you for life. Thank you.
Miigwech, Natalie, for that. That was such a grounding. I felt very peaceful just hearing your words and hearing that beautiful prayer. I just wanted to talk a little bit about two-eyed seeing, and many people are familiar with this, but for those that aren't, it's a Mi'kmaq elder, Albert Marshall, coined the phrase and its principle that sees Adawaptumunk, or two-eyed seeing, as a gift of multiple perspective. Treasured by many Indigenous people, two-eyed seeing stresses the importance of viewing the world through one eye, using the strengths of both Indigenous worldviews, and with the other eye using the strengths of Western worldviews. To see together with both eyes to benefit all. And weaving of perspectives is emphasized with both having equal importance, but acknowledging that in some instances, one perspective may have further our understanding of a specific concept or a situation more than the other. I really love this quote by Robin Wall Kimmer, which is from Braiding the Sweetgrass, that says, "It was the bees that showed us how to move between different flowers, to drink the nectar, to gather the pollen from both. It is this dance of cross-pollination that can produce a new species of knowledge, a new way of being in the world. After all, there aren't two worlds, there's just one good green earth." So we just want to take a little bit of time to recognize how special this month of June is. It is the time of year that brings the gift of the heartberry. and also known as the strawberry. It is shaped like a heart, and just like the heart, it provides a vital connection to the earth and to all those around us. Elder Lillian Pitawanakwit shared, just as the odamin, which is Ojibwe for heartberry, is connected to the plant by a vast system of leaves and runners and shoots, so is the heart connected to all the organs and the parts of the human body. The heart is at the center of the human. We share this today because at the very center of allyship is the connection to just like the connection to odamin or the heartberry, connection to each other, to everything around us on the earth and in the sky worlds. It is the abundance of gifts that we're all given. And in understanding these connections, we can truly become good allies and good relatives to one another. This beautiful heartberry is important medicine and carries many sacred teachings, especially for women and the gift of carrying new life. These teachings guide and enrich our lives, including love for ourselves, others, and all of creation. The teachings also help us with reconciliation and understanding the differences. Today, we talk about allyship and moving beyond land acknowledgements. We ask that you keep this heartberry in mind when the opportunity to enjoy this beautiful berry presents itself to you, that you remember it with gratitude and the gifts that it was given, that are given to us. And we'll put in the chat feature shortly just some more information about the heartberry, a beautiful posting from Wabano Health about the strawberry teachings.
Miigwech for sharing, Doris. I was out picking strawberries with my children over the past weekend, and it's beautiful meanings that you've shared. So I appreciate that. So we do have an agenda for today. We had a wonderful opening bringing us all together. Today we're going to be talking about what is allyship? How can you be an ally? We're going to talk a little bit more about land acknowledgements, what they are, why do we use them. We're going to talk about a term called reconciliation, go into a little bit more detail, and talk about turning awareness into meaningful change. And lastly, we will encourage some personal reflection and action planning, encouraging those of you in the call today to share your action planning, your thoughts and reflections throughout the chat.
Thanks, Natalie. As a non-Indigenous person, my lived experiences in healthcare has not been influenced by racism or bias. My unearned privileges has always allowed me access to the supports I needed. The opposite is true, though, for my partner, who is First Nations and carries with him the trauma of early childhood experiences of racism from healthcare providers. These experiences still heavily influence his trust of the medical professionals to this day, and actually his ability to seek medical attention when it's actually required. And throughout my 35 years of working alongside First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, I've heard countless stories where racism and bias, inequity have kept people from getting the care they needed. A beautiful elder in the Gitxsan territory shared stories with me about how he sought care at a local hospital over a number of times over a period of a few months, experiencing terrible pain in his abdomen, only to be sent away with the same discharge notes every time that he was seeking drugs. His family eventually took him to another hospital farther away, where he was diagnosed with stomach and adrenal cancers. This is only one of countless stories where racism and bias, and we've seen this in the newspapers and the media as well, have prevented Indigenous people from getting the care that they need. Documenting these stories can help influence better care outcomes. And a great example of this would be a project at SC Health led along with 4 other provinces and territories to document First Nations people's cancer experiences. And it was through a brokered dialogue and story work approach, where care providers and oncology doctors heard from other First Nation people on video about the care that they had received. And the results of these videos helped to influence for the better how care is provided. And we'll put a link to that as well in the chat, where you can see those videos and resources. And I did want to mention during my time in university, I did a placement with an Indigenous Friendship Center in Northern Ontario. And that led me to working for their provincial head office in Toronto after I graduated. And this work was the gateway to me living my role as a proud treaty person and an ally. Working for an Indigenous culture-based organization provided me valuable learning that continues to influence and guide me to this day. I received many gifts during my 16 years there, and one of the first was humility, learning to live with being uncomfortable, asking questions, seeking guidance, and taking risks. It was during this time that I learned I had a role to walk in both Western and Indigenous worlds in a good way and to help build bridges and to live a lifelong allyship. I would recommend to anybody who's interested in learning on how to become a better ally and a relative that you seek out some of the great reads that are available. In particular, there's a book titled Ally is a Verb by Rose LeMay, which was written as a practical manual for allies. And I suggest you search that out. I think you can get it on Amazon or Good Mind Reads as well.
Thank you, Doris. And again, as you see on the screen here, being an ally is about that understanding, that recognizing the unearned privileges that we have in this world based on your race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, ability, class, etc. So just take a moment to reflect on that. I'm going to speak now about what is a land acknowledgement. And we opened today with a land acknowledgement. Doris and I both took some time to share a little bit about our land that we are on today. As we're joining from different areas, we took the time to reflect on that and share. Land acknowledgements are a step towards reconciliation. They do promote inclusion and allyship in the workplace. The practices of land acknowledgements really help to foster respectful relationships with Indigenous nations and to help raise awareness of Indigenous presence and land rights in everyday life, and for ourselves and for meeting participants. It also helps to acknowledge our personal position within the system of colonization. Land acknowledgements inspire reflection and motivation to improve the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, and it really recognizes that there is an ongoing history of colonization and that effects are being felt even today. I don't want to do a do and don't, but I want to give some guidance here. So a land acknowledgement is a respectful recognition of the original stewards of the land. It is an act rooted in truth, accountability, and relationship building. It is grounded in Indigenous protocols and ways of knowing, and is a first step towards meaningful reconciliation and ongoing responsibility. I'd like to note that inviting someone to deliver the acknowledgement should not be a last-minute task or a task that falls on Indigenous staff members. It is important to remember that we are all treaty people and we all have responsibilities. When done well, a land acknowledgement will honor the nations whose land you're on. It is specific and informed by local Indigenous knowledge. It includes commitment to action, not just words, and it is spoken with humility and sincerity. So if you have difficulty pronouncing a word, a community, a location, try your best to pronounce it in a way that feels natural to you. And this is a process of learning, right? And relearning and unlearning and relearning. And it's okay if you make mistakes. We talk about performative gestures at times, and a land acknowledgement should not be a performative gesture. It is not a script read without context or feeling, a checkbox to meet diversity or event requirements, a replacement for real action or relationships with Indigenous communities, and it is not centered on the speaker's feelings or guilt. A performative gesture can lack follow through. It can often avoid uncomfortable truths. It can appropriate Indigenous practices without understanding, and it risks silencing Indigenous voices instead of uplifting them. And this quotation from Maurice Sinclair really sticks with me. And it's words without action can do more harm than good. And I'd like to leave that with you all for a moment.
Thanks, Natalie. So, to have a better understanding of land acknowledgements, it's important first to understand the following terms. Unceded traditional territory. A traditional territory is the geographic area identified by a First Nation as the land that they or their ancestors traditionally occupied and used. Unceded means that First Nations people never ceded or legally signed away their lands to the Crown or to Canada. Treaties are agreements made between the government of Canada, Indigenous groups, and often provinces and territories that define the ongoing rights and obligations on all sides. Treaties set out continuing treaty rights and benefits for each group. First Nations is the preferred terminology for First Nations people of what is now Canada and their descendants who are neither Métis nor Inuit. Métis, a person who self-identifies as Métis, is of historic Métis ancestry, distinct from other Indigenous people, and is accepted by Métis Nation. Inuit is an Inuktitut term, meaning the people who live in communities across the Inuvialuit settlement region in the Northwest Territories, Nunavik in northern Quebec, and Nunsiavut in northern Labrador and Land Claim regions.
Thank you, Doris. Turtle Island. I want to take a moment to recognize Turtle Island. Turtle Island is what some Indigenous peoples call North and Central America. In some Indigenous creation stories, it can also refer to Earth as a whole. The belief is that the turtle rose from the waters to give his back or shell to form the traditional lands we live on today. If you look at a map of North and Central America, you can see the shape of a turtle. I want to take a moment to share a story. My daughter, who's 10 years old, she came home from a field trip last week. They went to a local county museum. She came back from her field trip and she told me that the facilitator had shared a story about Turtle Island. I thought, well, that's really interesting. I want to learn more about that. Like, tell me about that story. And she said, Mom, the story I heard was different from the one that you told me, and the one that we've read in our books. She said she really liked how the versions were a little bit different from one another. You know, the story that she heard was different from what I had shared. And we talked about how these stories can be very unique. They can be slightly different from other stories. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn with her and to teach and share, right? That it's quite common among stories in Indigenous cultures that the stories may vary with minor differences in detail, but they often carry shared meanings and teachings. And I love that moment with her, and I thought this was a perfect moment to share that. And this is a beautiful piece of artwork here by Jeffrey Red George of Red Dog Art Studio. He is an Ojibwe artist from Kettle and Stony Point First Nation in southwestern Ontario. A little bit about Jeffrey. He grew up with a love of art and drawing inspiration from nature. My work reflects my culture, its blessings along with its inner pains and suffering. My journey through life has led me to my native culture and traditions and to the place where I am honored to share my heart and soul through my artistic gift. Jeffrey's work is proudly displayed in many private and public galleries throughout North America. Oh, I see a beautiful visual in the chat as well. Thank you for sharing. I love that. I can't wait to look through the chat afterwards.
Me as well. Thanks, Natalie. So I just want to share a little bit. Murray Sinclair Baugh shared what is the purpose of the Truth and Reconciliation Report really was to arm reasonable people of Canada who were ready to do something. And these are the people that are ready to do something, our allies. And I also wanted to share why I use the term Ba after his name. And in his Anishinaabe culture, Ba is added to the end of a person's name that has passed to indicate that they've made the transition to the spirit world, and it recognizes their journey and their continued significance and existence in the spirit world. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission provided those directly and indirectly affected by the legacy of the Indian residential school system with an opportunity to share their stories and experiences. The TRC spent 6 years traveling all parts of Canada and heard from more than 6,500 witnesses. It hosted 7 national events across Canada to engage Canadian public, educate people about the history and legacy of residential school systems, and share and honor the experiences of former students and their families. In December 2015, the TRC released its entire 6-volume report. The Truth and Reconciliations Commission's final report is a testament to the courage of each and every survivor family who shared their stories. The calls to action released in the final report are for all Canadians to answer. They are a collective responsibility where everyone can play a part in reconciliation, healing, and moving forward. This knowledge that's been shared with all of us through the TRC is a gift. So now that we know those truths, these gifts are also given to us, become our responsibility. To use this to acknowledge, to honor, to share, and to educate, and to help hold a safe space for others who have yet to share their experiences. I encourage all of you to read Murray Baugh's book, Who We Are, especially for those that are aspiring allies and ready to take action.
Thank you for sharing, Doris. So you may have heard of a term called reconciliation. What does this mean, and how can you work towards reconciliation or reconciliation? Reconciliation is a powerful term that moves beyond the idea of reconciliation as a concept. It emphasizes actions over words. It is rooted in respect, responsibility, and relationship building with Indigenous peoples. As Doris mentioned, Justice Murray Sinclair Baugh, chair of the commission, called for changes in policies and programs, as well as commemoration through education and memorials. As I said earlier, words are not enough, he said, to address the cultural genocide of residential schools on Aboriginal communities. Reconciliation is not an Aboriginal problem, he stated. It is a Canadian problem. It involves all of us. And we've put some, oh, I see Tansy Miigwech has put the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada into the chat, and Who We Are by Murray Sinclair. Thank you. You beat us to it, but I really, really appreciate that. And I also, another, the calls to action, the NCTR, the essential document. I encourage you all, go to that website, take a look at it, print off a copy. It is long. Do that work. Review the UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, right? This document supports self-determination and sovereignty, which is a critical foundation for action.
Thanks, Natalie.
Over to you, Doris.
What does reconciliation look like? So it's important for non-Indigenous people to understand that reconciliation is not one thing we can measure, but rather many things that we can do. There are just some, these are just some examples, but it's really about seeking out and embracing opportunities to learn, to grow, and to share with others. It can be scary to share your thoughts. You can be nervous. It's okay, but it's, sharing your experiences and questions is a good thing. And maybe you're nervous or afraid of being misunderstood, but not getting the words out correctly. It's all okay. This space is about being okay with being uncomfortable. And when your intentions are well-meaning and respectful, and when you acknowledge first that you're learning and growing as an ally, you've stepped onto that path of reconciliation. So please feel free to share in the chat what reconciliation looks like to you. We'd love to hear from you. And I think the chat looks pretty active. I'm not able to see it fully right now, but just some examples of what reconciliation looks like from the aspect of the Truth and Reconciliation Report would be acknowledging the land and understanding its history before meetings and events, supporting cultural events, ceremonies, and the repatriation of Indigenous artifacts, recognizing and respecting Indigenous governance and treaty rights, supporting Indigenous education and language revitalization, and holding yourself accountable by developing your own personal action plan.
Thank you, Doris. Yeah, we ask you to get that chat even more active. Come on, we know last week was really, really busy, and like I've been to all of these webinars, and I know that we can get some really good sharing and conversations within the chat. There's nothing like human connection, and I know that when we are meeting virtually, right, we can try our best to do that through chat. So please share what are some things that you can do in your role, your family, or community.
And recognizing also, thanks, Nat, there are lots of experts here, that we're not experts ourselves. We're sharing what we know and what we've learned, but that we recognize in the chats and joining us today, we have lots and lots of experts here. So we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge in the chat as well.
I love seeing what I'm sharing so far. So thank you, everybody, for taking that moment to reflect and share. So what can we do to move towards reconciliation? Doris has stated some great examples that are actually pulled from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and some action plans there. But we can also take a look at this visual here by using medicine wheel teachings. We can look at moving towards reconciliation from a different lens. So here are some things that you can do from a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual perspective that can assist in moving towards reconciliation. So physical, right now, what we're doing here, reflecting on our physical actions and our reactions, moving in a good way for others. So for example, right, spreading kindness, spreading love, um, self-care for your body. So today for me, just taking time to ground myself, to go outside, to, you know, set some good intentions in a good way and offering tobacco to the land. That was really important for my physical being and my steps towards reconciliation. Um, for emotional, we can understand our feelings, our emotions, what's coming up for us, right? Being curious about what we're feeling when we hear stories, when we hear sharing from others, when we look at how we feel, we can dig a little bit deeper and make more sense of that. We can use those emotions and feelings to contribute to a safe space, right? If I'm feeling unsafe, why am I feeling unsafe? And what can we do here? And respecting others' emotions as a really important, piece of that emotional aspect. Respect for one another goes such a long way. It's so important and integral to who we are as human beings. You know, at the end of the day, that's what we are. The mental, again, so questioning our biases. We all carry unconscious bias that we have, from the media, from our growing up, right, from our experiences as children. So questioning our biases, being curious, being open-minded, um, having non-judgment, um, keep learning, relearning, unlearning, relearning, keep learning about yourself and about others. In spiritual ways, we can explore what spirituality means to you or to others, can live that good life, Bidwadswin. And take a look at the seven grandfather teachings. Wisdom, love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, truth. My 8-year-old came home the other day. He said, Mommy, he was telling me about the seven grandfather teachings, something that I've been, teaching him since a little boy. He said, My teacher, she shared about the seven grandfathers' teachings at school today, and I shared so much that I knew about them. And my classmates, they were so kind of interested in what I wanted to share. And I thought, wow, like that's so special to have my young child be able to share a little bit and to be comfortable and have his perspective on spirituality, what this meant to him. So these are some things. This is a great visual that I love. I have to shout out to Victoria McKay. I believe this was your visual that I borrowed for good use, Victoria Miigwech. Appreciate that. But these are some things that we can be doing, just a little visual. So this is a document that you can find in the National Commission of Truth and Reconciliation. If you go to the link that was posted in the chat there, you can look at action plans. And these is like a guide, 6 actions of reconciliation. So we can reflect that everything will things look a little different for everyone, but this is a really good starting point to learning, to understanding, exploring, recognizing, taking actions and teaching others. So learn the history between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, right? Take a look. What are treaties? What are the treaties? What does this mean? What is the bigger picture? Understanding. So making sense of what you've learned about the history and legacy of residential schools, exploring unique intersections that we have between treaty, constitutional, Indigenous, and human rights that we have in Canada. Recognize the rich contributions that Indigenous peoples have made to Canada. Take action to address historical injustices and present day wrongs. And take a moment to teach others. We are all learning. We continue to learn. I say to my children every day, Mommy's still learning. I'm still kind of figuring out and making sense of information and things, what comes to me, and constantly reflecting. I really appreciate all that's being shared. The chat is so quick. I see things coming that I want to speak to, but it's just so active. So I just want to say thank you, and we'll take a moment to take a look at that. Over to you, Doris, in this beautiful visual.
Thanks, Natalie. I've noticed, I've been trying to see the chat as well, and
I'm,
it's very active, and
I'm
I'm
gonna take a look
really
here.
anticipating seeing what's being said in there. But so yeah, being an ally is truly hard work. And for me personally, this role will never be a destination. It is absolutely part of who I am and how I carry myself every day. It helps me to stay grounded, to stay humble, and also hopeful that one day I too will be a good ancestor. And being an ally is a conscious choice to never stop reshaping how you think and how you act in a way that honors your roles. And it means embracing being uncomfortable. I know we've said it a couple times, but it really does mean that, and including challenging your own biases. Difficult situations and conversations are going to happen, but they always include the gifts of learning and growth. And for those allies out there, you are the change makers who focus on reconciliation. And remember, your actions as an ally can be both small and big. Your allyship is your own to make it. You can grow into this role. It will change you for the better, and perhaps encourage others to become allies and do the same. I really wanted to thank everybody who's joined us here today. I know I said it earlier too, that we have a lot of experience, a lot of allies, I'm sure of it, and feel it in that have joined us today. And I really appreciate that for all of those that have joined us for multiple um, over webinars over this past month and celebrating and honoring Indigenous History Month. We truly appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity to learn from you as well in the chat, and for your participation. So just over to you, Nat.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm looking through the chat here, and I have much to learn. I
Mhm.
see that there are some great sharings about, reflections of what people are doing to, for their personal action plans, moving towards reconciliation. We have some TRC calls to action for health listed here, some books that are being recommended. Elaine went to the powwow at Old Fort York on Indigenous Peoples Day on Saturday. I just, really appreciate everyone sharing here. Want to state that we are constantly learning. I am learning. So if anything we've shared here today, if we've missed anything, if something like I said is missing, I see from Kamal Denman, your notes here about as a member of a First Nation in BC that is unceded with no intentions of ceding. I find the statement, we are all treating people, a bit oversimplified and Eastern centric. I I want to note that I appreciate this perspective, and I'm going to continue to learn and do more reflection on that for myself. And some questions here. Are we able to get access to the slideshow and links in the chat? So any links that are in the chat, I encourage you, copy and paste if you can into your own document from the chat, and maybe save it within your own document so that you can refer to it for future reference, for sharing, for learning. As for the slide deck, we will not be sharing the slide deck, but this meeting the webinar is being recorded. So we will be sharing the recording. There's been lots of interest in the recording. So I know Anissa is working on that. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. And I want to just thank everyone for taking the time to be here today, for coming together, for just for sharing, for listening, for being here. So I wish everyone all the very best. If you are in a region where you are affected by this heat wave, please, stay cool, take care of yourselves. But I wish you all a great day, a great week, a great summer ahead. And until next time, Bamapi.
Oh, we're going to turn it over to
My, yes, we are,
Brittany.
aren't we? Yeah,
Yeah.
I got excited there. Not excited to end, but I do want to give Brittany a chance to share about our commitment to the PAIR program. So my apologies, Brittany.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Miigwech to Natalie and Doris for such a wonderful, beautiful presentation, so meaningful, and yeah, just miigwech for sharing with us. So I just wanted to pop on here on the end. You guys would have met me at the second session if you were there. My name is Brittany Hertz, and I'm program lead here with the First Nations Inuit Métis program. And just as Natalie and Doris are sharing about, those little actions that you can do in your daily lives to, to have reconciliation and be an ally. I just wanted to share something that SE Health as an organization is doing, and to give you a little bit of a layer here, the FNAM program that we work for is part of a larger organization called SE Health. And SE Health has been the first healthcare organization to commit to the PAIR program. So if you haven't heard of the PAIR program, it stands for Partnership, Accreditation, and Indigenous Relations. And this is through the Canadian Council for Indigenous Business. So I encourage you to take a look and see, just look up some information about this. This program really does reflect allyship by encouraging organizations to build those respectful and reciprocal relationships with Indigenous businesses. So we touched upon all of these pieces kind of throughout our four webinars here. And it really does support shared growth by fostering that long-term relationship and collaboration. So yeah, I just wanted to share that SE as an organization has committed to this, and this really means it's a starting point. So it signals that an organization is taking those clear and intentional steps to improve how it engages with Indigenous communities, businesses, as well as supporting their own Indigenous staff. So we're at the stage where we've began implementing strategies such as policies, um, Indigenous relation policy, and how we can work better in a positive way. So I just wanted to share that. If you're still here, miigwech, Natalie, and Doris for passing it over to me for a few seconds, and I'll hand it back over to you.
But again, I want to, encourage us to continue to learn and to reflect and continue to come together. I love the sharings. So just a big thank you from us to all of you. Wishing you all a great day ahead. And if there are any questions, to reach out to our team. And we're happy to continue learning together.